It's 6:30 in Readfield, Maine. Please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting for the Town of Readfield, December 13th, 6:30 p.m. Just a reminder for all of our Select Board members and anyone joining us at home that speaks, please make sure you speak clearly into your microphone. We want to make sure everyone can hear us. Just a friendly reminder for all our friends who may be following at home. We begin our agenda with the approval of the minutes from November 15th and December 6th. Is there a motion?
I would like to make an addition and then a motion.
Please.
I would request that the comments from at the end of the town manager's report be recorded into the written minutes. That was concerning the Safe Spaces Meeting House. And the town manager offered that the space at the town hall is available free of charge to any and all groups, including that group.
And that's November 15th meeting, yes?
That was, yes.
Just adding that to be recorded. Okay, gotcha.
Right. I asked Kristen about that in the minutes, and she said that since the town manager's report is already in there, if there was a comment on that, if I just put it into the verbal part tonight, she would get it recorded.
Okay, great.
So I would make a motion to approve the minutes with that addition.
Okay.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion about the minutes from November 15th or December 6th? All in favor? Thank you very much. Item 22071, warrants 21 through 24. To my left, Catherine, whenever you're ready.
Yep, I've got too many things open.
Well, in the meantime, I will say thank you all for being here. I can cover you. I can fill.
No.
Friends, I can juggle. It's okay.
The stage manager. So.
That's right. Exactly. Stretch it out. Stretch it out.
Okay. In November 22nd, we had a warrant for $67,226.98, along with state fees and payroll for a total of $88,321.11. Highlights from that was another payment on our snowplow contract. Eric, I don't remember what the 3,500 to Pollywood was.
That was for furniture for the beach. It was through a grant from the AARP.
Right.
Yeah, for nice deck chairs down there by the water.
Mm.
We also made a payment, so that was $3,548. $7,979 was our payment to the Cobussy Watershed District.
Mm.
And we had $1,940 to Pretty Flaherty for legal fees for various issues. So that was that warrant. The second warrant was for December 6th. It was $365,245.65 for the bills payable. There were state fees and payroll also for a total of $383,007.36. Notable items here was our monthly payment to the school district for $288,000. We paid Winthrop, the town of Winthrop, $19,055. That was for ambulance service, I believe, for half of the year.
Correct.
Another payment on the snowplow contract for $33,632.50. And we paid, I think it was our yearly dues to Maine Municipal Association of $11,088.50. So if you have any questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, I would move those two amounts for approval.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve warrants 21 through 24 as presented. Is there any discussion? Thank you, Catherine, for doing that. All in favor? Thank you very much. Our next item is communications. We have 25 minutes scheduled for this. We'd like to start first with Select Board communications. Do any members of the Select Board have anything to say? Sean, we'll begin.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the library for the tree lighting ceremony. I forget which day it was now, last Friday. It was just so cold I forgot. But it was a wonderful turnout for probably the coldest day of the winter yet. I can't believe how cold it was. And that Santa has the best energy of any Santa I know. So thank you for hosting that. It was great. Kids loved it, and it was nice to see people out for it. So thanks again.
Great. Thank you, Sean.
It's nice to see all the lights around town. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Ralph?
I have something to relay in my capacity as the liaison of the Age-Friendly Committee. They do not have any concrete requests at this point, but they are concerned that as the budget and planning process goes on for the ERA funds, that they would like to at least have a placeholder there for as yet to be determined needs, although I did sense that they thought that the recreation department plan, which would include a more user-friendly kayak launching dock, would fit one of their wish list requirements. So they just want to make sure that everybody knows that as the budget process unfolds, that they would like to make sure that they have a placeholder notification. So that's what this is tonight. And I am sure that more concrete details will follow.
Thank you. And again, you're talking about the Age-Friendly Committee.
Age-friendly, correct.
Thank you, Ralph. Kathy?
Nope.
I just want to say to everyone around town, thank you very much for your holiday spirit. It's great to see all of the lights. It's great to see all of the events, things happening around town, and general, feels nice this year when we're all together. So certainly, Carol, you have a beautiful arrangement of things up there as well. So just in general, just to say, happy holidays to all of Readfield, and we appreciate everyone's spirit. Moving, oh yes.
Can I just make a quick,
Absolutely, yes.
going backwards
Oh, yes.
to Veterans Day? I think we forgot to
Did we not?
mention that.
Oh, did
The
we not
previous
mention
meeting, I
Yes.
think we forgot. So it was a phenomenal turnout.
that? Yes.
I know we made 70 lunches plus maybe at the church, and those were gone.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people did not eat. So we had a huge attendance. Dale Potter did a fabulous job as always with her meaningful letters about how it was to be in the war.
Yeah.
There was a march down Main Street. There was a musket fire, ringing of the bell, raising of the flag. Mr. Hasselfuss gave a speech. It was just a really good turnout. People in period dress. And I know you were there. I believe Eric was there. So really good turnout and a lot of spirit.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought maybe we had mentioned that before, but certainly I think it's important to know that. Absolutely. And again, just a sight to say, all the participation of the town and seeing all those folks there. We move on to town staff reports. 10 minutes for Eric to tell us both the treasurer's report and his town manager's report. Eric.
Okay, thanks, Dennis. I'll start with my treasurer's report, and I'll angle this a little bit so that I can get a good clean mic sound. So this is for the month of November. We have check reconciliation completed through the end of the month, November 30th, 2021. All of our accounts are in balance, and there was no unusual activity in the checking account. As far as the audit goes, December field work with RHR, there's an H, should be an R there in front of the RHR. RHR Smith and Company was scheduled in November, and they were actually out at the office last week in early December. So we're underway for our audit. They're being very efficient. They were very good, prepared, and didn't waste our time, which is really important. They did the work themselves. They didn't make us go running through boxes. So that was fantastic. And Teresa, as always, did a great job preparing, and we're continuing to complete reports and any requested information that the auditors do give us, which is periodic. Moving on to bonding, we did receive bond proceeds of $395,000 in November. And again, that was for the fire station sprinkler system, the additional road work, and for some work to the library. Those projects are still on hold until we can get a bit more staff support in the maintenance department so that I can have some more resources to apply to those. But they can't go too much longer before I'm going to have to set something else aside to move them forward. But I just wanted to give the board an idea that we have the money and we're ready to go. Let's see, next item, retirement. We ran into a bit of a snag here with some account setup issues. We had been withholding or have withheld both the town and the employee share in November. But we were just able this past week to finally get that money transferred to John Hancock because of some account setup issues, like I said. But we're on track now. I just wanted to make the board aware that it is not a smooth rollout, but we're there and the money's flowing. So our employees can start getting their big returns on their large cap stocks.
Nice.
So that's what they choose to do. Moving on to comments. The report covers the month of November. I mentioned that. Revenues and expenditures should be about 42% for the year. Receipts are down for the month, but up for the year to date. Revenues show an astronomical 399% increase. But that is related to ARPA funds coming through and bond proceeds. That $395,000 gave us a nice kick for the month. But when you look at that for the year to date, we're actually not that far off from where we were last year. Expenses for the month of November show sharp decreases in both education and solid waste. These are not true representations, however. We did have a journal that got posted to October when it should have been posted in November. It was the first journal in November. So all the money got paid, everything was issued the way it should. The accounting period that set of expenditures was accrued to was wrong. So we noticed that we're in process of correcting that with Trio, which is our accounting software. But I just wanted to make the board aware that things look a little funny, and that's why. Let's see, the error will be corrected. So year-to-date numbers are unaffected by that change as expected because it was just a 1 month shift in the expenses. So everything looks much more reasonable when you're looking at the year-to-date for expenditures. And overall, expenses remain down, but that is due in large part to the fact that we haven't been expending for capital because of COVID impacts, but also staffing. So that's my treasurer's report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Ralph, go ahead.
First pension of, did the change in the plan in terms of the town contributions and making uniform change the subscription rate in terms of participation?
Yes, it did. We saw a lot more activity.
Okay.
Everybody's contributing that's eligible, and most are contributing above the town match. So above the 3%. So at or above that. So I'd say it did have a very positive effect on.
So they're getting a pre-tax deduction for the voluntary additional contribution.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Did we ever get an investment policy statement as part of the plan document?
I will look.
Thank you. Because I think that's an important part of having a complete document. And I know that we had spoken with Sarah about it, and she had a template that she could work with, which wouldn't, I don't think, require a lot of heavy lifting because it basically was pretty uniform language.
Yeah.
But I really think we ought to have that as a preface to the plan document that speaks to our goals and objectives and how we plan to protect and advance investment policy strategies.
Yeah, I'll ask. That's a very good question. The one thing I will say is that everybody at the moment is in an age-based structured.
They should be.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that I'll pass that piece of information along. That they're looking at target retirement as the basis.
Target retirement is a fallback if you don't want to pay a ton of attention and you're planning on staying in your job
It's a
until
good,
you
it's a good
retire.
default position.
It is, but it's not going to advance your goals in a fashion that will provide you the maximum benefit. So that's why we have Sarah to encourage them to think outside that box.
Absolutely.
Bond receipts.
Yes.
We did, as you explained, get a big hit on the income side.
Hmm.
Projections for spending that money this fiscal year versus rolling it into the next.
It has a lot to do with staffing.
Even the sprinkler system?
Even the sprinkler system, because right now I'm not necessarily able to, dedicate much time to much other than operations, just basic operations at this point. That could change. It will. I mean, things have lightened up. But I can't say with any certainty where we're going to be in 3 or 4 months, because right now I have a bit of a window until January, mid-January,
And the budget.
and then the budget
starts.
comes in. And so it's something that we're going to have to talk about. If you want me to prioritize that, I'm going to have to think about what other work might be deferred or offloaded to other employees.
Obviously, I think budget takes primacy, but we're looking at something that basically has been going on for about 3 years now in terms of the capital plan for the firehouse. I'm not so much worried about the egress for the library in terms of, capital load, but I really would hope that we could get a bid request out as soon as possible so that we have a rough idea of whether or not what we have borrowed is going to be sufficient, so that we don't run into the surprises that we have habitually run into with the firehouse. Not our fault, but regardless, the sooner I think we get it out and get a sense for what that actual cost will be, the better shape we're going to be in terms of planning if we have to roll funds over into the next fiscal year and carry that bonding into 22, 23.
Yeah, no, that's a fair statement and fair
Thank you.
request. Dennis?
Is there more of your treasurer's report, or are you all set?
That's it. I do just
Anybody
want
else
to
have any
let
questions?
Ralph and the board know that unless there are objections, I will prioritize that activity.
That's up to you.
I've had a reasonable request, and so I think that unless there's objections.
Well, what's unreasonable?
No.
We're in a public meeting, Ralph. I gotta say stuff like that.
I just want to make sure that if anyone has anything else, they get a chance to mention it. But otherwise, we'll
Okay.
move on to your town manager's report. Thank you, Ralph.
Yes, and I'm actually going to touch on one point about that, some of those income
Oh,
things here.
perfect. Yes, indeed.
So maintenance and infrastructure, and this is my town manager's report, shifting
Yeah.
gears. The first few winter storms have been icy, but town staff and our contractor have been well prepared. We've been able to address the roadways and our facilities. It was a bit tight in a few spots, but it got done and done well. And we had a really trying episode at the transfer station Saturday. Ben came out on his day off to help out, which was fantastic. He will be paid for that, by the way, overtime. But with the ice, it's difficult to keep facilities open, but Mike, Karen, Ben all worked together and made sure that we were able to stay open with an abundance of caution. And if there was a need to close, they would have, but we kept it going. So I want to thank them for that. We do have increase in traffic concerns on South Road at the elementary school. They did change their pickup in the afternoon. And we're looking to try to address that both short-term and long-term. Short-term, I need to ask the school why they made that change and why, if there's any way to look at it differently. We did provide them with cones. We did ask the sheriff's office to help provide some coverage for the first couple weeks because of the queuing that was happening on South Road. Those are some short-term things that need to be looked at. Long-term, that facility has never had enough parking for even the basic events that they hold there. And so I am looking through the budget process and I'm going to work on getting a better answer from the school about why they had their short-term issue. But I do hope that the select board would send a letter to the RSU asking them to take some of our money that we give them in gobs every month and put it into making the parking situation better at that facility. I think that's a fair and reasonable request because it has for years caused traffic problems on South Road. And this is probably one of the most acute. It has to do with COVID, I think, but it's not going to get any better. So I want to see us try to work towards that. Being a budget goal to help encourage them to work in our benefit. Most regular maintenance activities remain on hold until we do find a new maintenance employee. I've got interviews tomorrow for a couple. I'm not holding my breath. We still are faced with not a lot of applicants, but we're moving forward. My goal is to have somebody in that position by December and to give it a go, or by the end of December. We do have a few months to make a final decision, 6 actually, but I think that we have to have someone in that position, even if they're not 100% qualified at this point, because we can't continue to put things off. But that's, things are getting done. The maintenance at the cemeteries has been almost 100% completed. There are some areas that didn't get all the leaf cleanup taken care of, but relative to where we were, we're in a decent spot. Ben worked very hard, and I also want to thank Eric Johnson and Eunice Bowler for their help coming in on short notice, a couple days a week here and there to patch things up and keep our maintenance of those cemeteries up close to where we normally would have it. So that's very much appreciated. And then another COVID impact, we have a heat pump installation at the town office was delayed because the crew that was going to do the install got COVID or had close contacts with people that had COVID. And so that's been a change as well. And this relates to Ralph's point about work at the fire station. We did receive a $21,000 check from Catherine Bruce for her share of the septic field replacement that we had floated. And I actually, I was slow in getting that request letter out, but she's selling the building, so it's a good time for her to be paying us. And so that came in. Right now, we do just have about $2,000 to $3,000 outstanding from Merrill's investigation for their share of that. So that's $25,000 when it all comes in that will be back into that pot to help out with capital maintenance costs for that building. So that's a plus. Moving on to Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
I want to thank the Conservation Commission, Rec Board, and Trails for their meeting this past week. It was very constructive, and we're going to talk about it more later in this meeting, but I wanted to specifically thank them for their effort there. Moving on to Transfer Station. We accept food waste all year round, frozen or not, excuse me. We do accept it. And so if you haven't picked up a free compost collection bucket, we still have them available at the transfer station. Bring it in. We compost all year round. Our piles are hot. We turn them regularly, and so we can accept that stuff all year. We accept Christmas trees. With Dennis's kick of the Christmas spirit, we take them when you're done with them.
Yes.
We'll put them in the brush pile, no tinsel or ornaments, please, and we'll compost those and grind them up, and they'll be used for biomass or for wood chips for trails. Dave Morrow is working on a quote for area lighting for the organics piles, and that includes the compost, the brush pile, the green waste, and the leaf pile. So we're looking at covering that area with some additional lighting. The electronic payment system has been installed at the transfer station. So that's a big step forward. Staff have been trained. We've seen a few transactions roll through in the trial phase. We are still in trial, but that should be ready to go by the end of the month. So folks can expect to be able to make payments by credit and debit card by the end of the month at the transfer station. So that's going to be finally a big step forward for us.
Will you be able to use your phone, Eric, to make payment?
We don't have the tap Venmo type stuff at this point. We do, it's just cards.
No worries.
We're in the 21st century, but not in the 20th.
That's right. It's more like 29,
Yeah,
2009. Yes.
we're making steps, but we're not to the touchless payment yet.
That's right. Yes. It's like ding.
All right, and so then the last, I've got 3 additional items here, administrative and personnel. I do want to start and thank Carol for attending the select board training. Hopefully it was viable, but I really appreciate you attending. I know the rest of the board does as well. So thank you for attending that training. The town office and library will be closed the Friday before Christmas and the Friday before New Year's. The transfer station will be closed the Saturday of Christmas and the Saturday of New Year's. So a little bit of a split schedule there, but they're closed when they normally would be open, and we're closed the day before. So that's how that works. And we are continuing to take applications, as I mentioned earlier, for maintenance and collection clerk positions. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Unless there are questions for Eric in regards to those reports, we can move on. Very well. We have 5 minutes for boards, committees, commissions, and departments. We'd like to say thank you for the Conservation Commission minutes of October 12th, the Comprehensive Plan Committee minutes of October 20th, the Broadband Internet Committee minutes of September 1st. Any discussion or additional select board input on that? All right. This is the point in the meeting where is public communication. 5 minutes has been set aside for members of the public who may address the select board. I see only one person, I think, at home on Zoom, and we have 2 folks here. Anything? Right. Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Just making sure. Very well. Pam?
Yes.
Would you like to
hi.
address the select board? Hi.
Well, I'm just here to, for the library representative. I think you had me farther down, but I can do it now.
Oh, yeah. No, this is just for other public stuff, but if you're on the agenda, we'll get to you. But thank you for checking in.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right. We move on to appointments, reappointments, and resignations. 5 minutes for this. Item 22072 is to consider the appointment of Eric Dyer as the Freedom of Access Act officer, FOAA officer. Eric, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. Yeah. So this is a position that had previously been held by the town clerk office. However, 9 times out of 10, it would come to me because I had to engage with the town attorney. 9 times out of 10, I would have to be the primary respondent. The records being requested almost exclusively deal with me and my work as town manager. And that trend has continued. It's also a difficult thing for the town clerks to manage because they have very fixed schedules at times, particularly during elections, when they do a bulk of the work for real estate payments and collections. And so it's a lot easier for me to take this burden on because it's a lot of stress for them. I'm already in the fire because I'm having to deal with this stuff anyway. And so I'd like to, and I have offered to our current new clerk to take this on because it just makes sense. And so I'm looking for the select board to make that appointment so I can continue doing what I've always done, but with the title in place. And I will add that Kristen has offered, and I will be quickly appointing her as a deputy so that we can share that workload if time permits, which it sometimes does. So.
That sounds good to me. Is there any discussion here? Certainly, I think, just point out, part of our goal as select board is to make things more efficient, and it seems like this is a no-brainer. So thank you very much. I'd entertain a motion to appoint Eric Dyer as the FOAA officer.
I'll make that motion effective this evening through June 30th, 2022.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, very well. Thank you very much.
We were all
Any-
excited second.
It is. It's so nice. Any discussion? All in favor of this? Thank you very much. Perfect. Our next item, 22073, consider the resignation of Sandra Rourke from the Cemetery Committee. I think I can explain this. With the new boards and commission guidelines that we have set up and some ideas about attendance, this was submitted actually by Andy Tolman, who I believe is the chairman of that. that committee, of the cemetery committee, and just really to clean up, I think, the membership. There's been some absences and things like that, and I don't think there's been any objection to that. So Sandra Rourke did some work for the cemetery. Thank you very much. But now we are going to accept her resignation from that board. I guess it's not her, but by policy.
By policy.
Yeah, by policy, we will accept that resignation. Do we need a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Sandra Rourke from the cemetery committee.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right. The next up, this is to consider the resignation, her resignation of Lindsay Moran from the Recreation Board. Well, that makes me sad.
Me too.
Because I think Lindsay and her family are great additions to have here in Readfield, but I understand sometimes life gets in the way. Any other?
I would just also echo, Lindsay's been a wonderful member of the board for the last 5 years, and just thank her for that effort and volunteering in many events and with wonderful costumes at sometimes. So,
Yeah, there you go. So I would accept a motion to accept this resignation with regrets.
So moved.
So moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Goodbye, Lindsay. Thank you very much for your service. Old business, we are now on 15 minutes set aside for our first item, 21068. Consider next steps for investigating broadband internet. There's 5 minutes to talk about this. And Eric, if you'd like to.
Well, I actually just wanted to ask if it would be possible to take, because we're talking about committees and things, take
yes.
Mitchell out of order, because she does have just a brief item to talk about accepting of a grant.
Oh, sure.
And it's way down in the agenda, so I was hoping.
Yeah, let's move her up.
That would be fine.
Pam, are you with us via the Zoom? Can you hear us? She might be making a sandwich. You don't know. Pam Mitchell will move you up in the agenda.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Hey now. Okay. Pam, I'm sorry I didn't realize that earlier, but if you don't mind, we'll move you right up.
Okay, that'd be
You'll
great.
be able to
Thank
watch Jeopardy.
Oh, I wish. But first off, I would like to say to Sean, thanks for commenting about the Christmas tree lighting. We always love doing that. We missed it last year and it was lovely doing it. It was cold though, but thank you. Glad you had fun. And I'm here for Melissa, who could not be here tonight because she's running, as a matter of fact, a compost workshop for the town. So she couldn't be there at the same time. But I just wanted to let you all know that we are so excited to have received a grant from the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, New England grant. And it was for almost $5,000. And we were just thrilled to have gotten it. And it's basically was what we got it for were things to help with space in our library and a teen, get how to do some more things with teens. And the other thing was time. And so some of the money that we got from it, we're going to use to do some more teen programming and get some authors to come. We're trying to really emphasize getting the teens more involved in the library. And we did do one, just a little side note, not with the grant, but we did do a teen reading challenge this fall and it was great. So we were thrilled to get a bunch of kids joined that and it was quite successful. But the other, let's see, for the teens, so that's for the teens. Then we're going to get the upstairs space of the library. The town's going to help us out with some of that, with the fire escape and the door, and then some of the grant money will go towards adding some workspaces and some electronics and electrical work upstairs so that we can get that space up and running for the town to be able to use that. And the other thing too was getting some library outreach. We're interested in trying to reach more people in the town. And so we're going to, some of the money is going to go to helping us get more of a presence and go to different functions and tell people about the library who aren't using it, so we could maybe reach some different folks too. And like I said, with the teen and children's, where some of the money is going to go to getting some authors. We're working on some main authors, and so that's what we're going to use it for. But we're thrilled to have gotten it, and we just wanted to let you all know about it.
All right. Well, thank you, Pam. Eric, anything to add about this?
No, I think I will just say it's wonderful that they received the grant. I do want to make an administrative comment on this and the other grant that we're going to accept and approve tonight.
Okay.
The reason that we're doing accepting and approving is because these are both after the fact.
Okay.
And we do have a policy in place to ensure that the select board is able to approve these things before we get the award, and preferably before we apply.
Okay.
It can't always happen quite in that order, but I do like to know before we receive an award if something's been applied for. So just a reminder to.
And is that just procedural, Eric? It's not just because.
Well, it's in large part because these things do commit us to doing certain activities, and the select board should be aware of those. Also,
Gotcha.
in some cases, not in all, it can commit us to expending matching funds. So this is a really important piece. Broadly, little ones like this, it doesn't necessarily have an impact, but process is process, and we want to be consistent across our boards and committees. And so it is an expectation the board should know about what's happening before it happens.
No, thank you very much. No, it's good to know, and I understand that. Carol?
Question. First of all, Melissa, nice job. Very detailed letter, obviously very effective. Is there still a lot outstanding in the proposed renovations at the library that isn't funded? Is there much in there?
There's not much that's not funded.
Okay.
The work is still outstanding, but we do have the $395,000 available for, again, the breakout is between the fire station and the library, but it goes to Ralph's point about knowing what we have for expenses so we can know what's available. So this could be an excellent supplement that would allow that to happen when it might not otherwise, but I very much expect that it'll be in addition to what we've put aside for that work.
My only thought was, I know we have been trying to find things to do with ARPA funds, and I don't know how much is still left in that pocket, but the library is tiny, and in the name of social distancing, I don't know if that's a worthy cause for any, if we do have funds still left. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. A good point. And we have $55,000 and $57 left of our first tranche of ARPA.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Couple comments. One, on the ARPA funds, it's wonderful that people are thinking about how we can spend that money, but if you've been listening to our conversations over the past several months, those funds are extremely limited by law in the funding mechanism. And our hands are very tied. So there are wonderful ideas on ways to spend that money, but most of them aren't available for us to use. Unless they change the rules, which, as we know, that often happens. So Eric, has the RFP gone out yet for any of the library work?
No, so no RFPs have gone out for any of our capital projects.
Okay, I guess I would ask the select board, not in this, right at this moment, but if we could ask Eric to prioritize that. I think it's important because as we saw how busy everyone was last summer, this last building season, if we don't get things out there now, we're not going to be able to get in line for work to be done during the next building season. And maybe there'll be some people who have some time this winter who aren't completely filled up who could do this. And I know Eric is overworked, so I'm not picking on you. But I really think it's important, and I don't mind the library spending grant money that they get for this, but for doing things like the electrical work and fixing up that back room that needs the walls repaired, that was money that the town had already set aside. And I'd like to see the library use their funds for things that aren't included in renovations. You know, all of the wonderful items about setting up workstations and having electronics and programming and so forth. I think that's just really important because that's what we went to the town people for. And I fully support the town manager's statements about process. We've been working on that a lot this year, and in the name of efficiency, it's just critical that I think going forward, this select board does not approve things that have not been submitted in order. You know, if a grant proposal comes up to somebody and it's due in 3 days, call the town manager and say, hey, I have this opportunity. Can I go ahead and fill in the application? And that can work. And then Eric can let us know at our next meeting that this thing came up very last minute. It was just discovered. But to get the award and then find out that the town applied for something is just a backwards way to do things. So I fully support doing things in that manner. So I would like to make a motion to accept.
Oh, hang on. Pam?
Well, I was just going to say,
Oh, sorry.
we apologize. We did not realize that we needed to do that first. So it totally makes sense what you're saying, and that it will be done the correct way from now on.
Thank you, Pam. We appreciate that. Catherine?
Okay, so now I have to. So I want to make a motion to approve the grant and accept the funding from the grant for the library from the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, New England Grant 2021 in the amount of $4,965.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Thanks for being here, Pam. All in favor? Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. Okay. So there we go. We took that. Now we want to get back online.
Now we're back to like page.
Do you want to do
72.
the rec acceptance too? Is that why you're here?
No,
Oh, okay. Never mind. Gotcha.
we can do it. That's not why he's here.
Oh, okay. No, because I don't know if there's anybody. Yeah. All right, let's continue. Let's hop back on the trail here. We have our 21068, which is our investigating steps for broadband internet. 5 minutes set aside for that. Catherine, would you like to be a part of that, or is this an Eric discussion? Either way.
Eric can start and I'll fill in.
Sounds good.
Just finished talking, Catherine.
All right, I'll start and he can fill in.
Where's your water bottle?
Oh, let's see. We haven't actually met to talk about this in a month.
Okay.
So the RFP has gone out. There were 4 towns involved in that. I think maybe at the last meeting I said we were going to send it out. So the 4 towns involved are Fayette, Readfield, Vienna, and Wayne.
Mhm.
The RFPs went out. There were 12 different companies that responded. That they were interested by attending a pre-bid meeting. And a week later, there were 5 different companies who reported that they intend to submit a proposal. And one of those companies is Spectrum, which was very surprising to me. So Red Zone, who is the wireless provider coming up with a new technology, did not put in a proposal, but said they would provide one to each town individually. At this point in time, it looks as if Fayette is going to go in that direction and not continue on with fiber to the home. They've been heavily recruited by Red Zone to be one of the first 2 towns in Maine to go with this technology. So they are planning a special town meeting in February to approve going in that direction, although that isn't known to be certain at this time. The RFPs that went out are for each town individually as well as for building a network together. And we will be getting that information back in on January 17th when the bids are due, and they'll be opened publicly. And then we have 7 days to make a decision on how we want to proceed. So things are really moving along. It's great that we have interest from various companies, mostly larger companies. I don't know that any of them are Maine-based.
GWI.
GWI is
Yes.
Maine-based. So, and not surprising because it's a fairly large project. There was at least one company who had an initial interest, but said that the project was too large for them. So it's kind of nice to know that we're actually too big for something.
Can I just ask a couple of clarifying questions? Because I think sometimes when we hear broadband, it's just like this magic fairy dust. It seems to me that now that broadband has become a sort of a next level issue, and by that I mean on a state level, on a federal level, that has begun to, if you will, kick up the dust a little bit among these companies. Would that be a good way of explaining it?
Sure.
That they're sort of looking at all these things. And I just want to point out that do you think that Readfield and the surrounding towns in this sort of consortium, the work that we have done prior to that, it seems like having ourselves organized is only going to help our eventual broadband fit. Is that something that we can say with confidence?
Absolutely.
We're ahead of the curve.
That's what I'm saying.
I think
Definitely.
that's what you're meaning.
Well, and that's where I wanted to get, just because the idea that we have put this time in, we have asked the voters, it has been approved. And I just want to emphasize that the process is working. These things, this huge idea of broadband, it's ever changing, but the fact that we have folks working on it and we're moving, we're ahead of the curve. I love that.
Right. And Readfield's a little, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, Ralph.
Well, I'm the glass half empty guy. We are ahead of the curve in terms of process. There is no doubt about that. But given the way the process is structured, that association could fall apart, and it could very well end up that the individual members of the Kennebec Lakes Association may go in individual directions. So I would just look at this very carefully in terms of patting ourselves on the back at this point, saying there's a lot that is still in play. Witness Fayette, buying red zone. We don't know where this is going to shake out. The process is good to date, and we've gotten some good responses, but we'll know better after we get the bids in place, and then the individual towns, because you're going to either look at them individually or you're going to look at them collectively. There's still a huge gray area out there, which will be a driver in terms of the way the region or the individual towns choose to go, which will have a cost impact. So
Right.
it's a nice campfire, but
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
rain.
Sometimes it's half full too.
Right.
Go ahead, Kath.
That's always been a known piece of the puzzle, that the group may each go in 6 different directions with the 6 towns, or in any combination of directions. So that's something that we're completely prepared for, and the RFP was structured so that it would be very easy for either manner to be the path that we follow. Readfield's a little bit unique in the towns in this consortium because we have so much coverage that we're going to, supposed coverage that passes by houses, whether it actually delivers what is advertised is another situation that most residents understand about. So we don't qualify for much in terms of grant funding. So with the approval at the last town meeting for us to move forward with this, the monetary approval for up to $5 million puts us in a unique position where we can jump on something when it's offered, when this RFP comes back. The other towns will be highly dependent upon grants. The grants coming through from the first round of the Connect Maine or Connect Me funding will be distributed, we've heard, in April. They believe the grants will be approved for the monies to be distributed, which means if the other towns can write a successful grant and get it, then they could be building at the same time that we are. And that's only possible because of the work that we've already done. Otherwise, it wouldn't be taking place on that time period. So that's just the update. And as Ralph said, there are a lot of unknowns.
Yeah.
And we'll just keep plugging forward.
Thank you. The next item that we have is item 22051, old business, final reading of a revised board, committee, and commission guide. This has taken a lot of work. Catherine, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Did we resolve some of our concerns? Anything else that we need to talk about this final reading? Eric?
I'll just note that I did make the changes recommended by the select board. The most notable would be on the talking about the first section for qualifications and ability. And so in the first paragraph on page 39 of your PDF, which is page 2 of the revised policy, I did change the language around ability. And so it says applicants are expected to be able to perform the duties of their appointment with reasonable accommodations. So I put that around into an affirmative type of statement rather than that the select board might disqualify somebody for not being able to perform their duties. So I don't know if that meets your expectations. I think it meets mine as far as softening and kind of making the language a bit more, well, a little bit clearer, but also more positive.
That works for me.
And then the other changes were made throughout as far as editing, taking away the repetitive paragraphs, small changes here and there that were recommended.
I have quite a list of things that aren't correct yet.
Okay.
Do we want to note them here and have Eric change it and approve it tonight? Or do we want to have me work with Eric on it and bring it back?
My preference is always bring us back the finished copy. Sometimes we can get into the weeds about corrections and things like that. And for the sake of the meeting and honoring the agenda, I feel like that's the best way to go about it. Sean?
Yeah, every time I read this, I think of more things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we have this
the other
process.
issue with this, but
Absolutely, that's
One
right.
of the things I
Is that okay?
Yeah.
First of all, just before, but I
Yes,
just want to make
that's
sure.
fine.
Okay,
Right.
yep, go
We're on
ahead.
the same page.
Yeah.
one of the other things this week that I came up reading it was just really looking at the number we assign to boards of members, and that number, and some have alternates and some don't, et cetera. I'm wondering if we put something in there to a caveat of alternates, because I think right now we have a hard enough time getting paid employees, never mind volunteers, for our boards. And I think that alternate position gives somebody an opportunity almost as a trial and a bit more buy-in than it does just signing up for a 3-year seat or something. And especially just right now, I think it's hard to find people. And I just want to make it more open and make people feel like it's not as much of a commitment maybe in some ways.
I might actually second that. Here's something I will never forget. When I ran for the select board the first time, everyone looked at me like, why on earth would you want to do that? And I think there's a little bit of a stigma about, being involved in, the way your town operates. The reason I ran was because there was an open spot and no one had taken out, and it was just amazing to me. And I didn't think that was how our town, I couldn't let that happen. And so sometimes as I got into it and I started having it, luckily I had a group of people who helped me and taught me and a town manager. But I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes there is this stigma that I have to do this, or that it's going to be an incredible time commitment. I don't think that necessarily has to be the case always. And when there is a clear meeting schedule, like has been created, and including something like that in there, I think that's valid.
Yeah, and I understand there's a different responsibility and role of an alternate member and regular members, but I just think we're in a different place in terms of volunteerism in general, and how do we get more folks engaged right now?
Mm-hmm.
And any way to try, I just can't imagine hurts.
So are you asking Eric to create a sentence in here that could say that alternate positions could be available on any committee?
Yeah. Something to that effect.
Something to that effect.
It's sort of, would you say it's like a toe dipper clause?
A toe dipper.
You could be like an alternate member if you
Right.
found out it's like, Jesus, these people are crazy.
You don't have
Then
to
you
do
could
the
just,
whole polar dip.
no,
You
just a
gotta
toe
get your
dipper.
feet wet.
The toe dipper clause,
Right.
sir.
I hear what you're saying, but the fact is that alternates are every bit as important as regular members.
Mhm.
When someone can't show up, a regular member, and alternates have a responsibility to be informed of the issues at hand so they can vote without abstaining. So I think all this does in the terms of day-to-day or month-to-month committee operations is create management difficulties with that kind of a structure. So I would like to think about that a little bit more. I mean, yeah, it's hard to find volunteers, but there's a responsibility that's required when you step up to do this. And people should understand that going in. And maybe it's not an easy thing, but it shouldn't be easy. It should be a responsibility that you want to accept as a functioning, participating member of your community, and you don't get a pass. And I don't know that there's, from my perspective, having done this for a while on a number of levels, I don't know how you ease people in an alternate position without making sure that when an alternate is needed, that they are a functioning member when they're called on. So that's just my concern. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't consider this, but I would certainly like to get into the weeds on what that would entail.
Right.
Yeah.
My only thing would be this, is I absolutely understand where you're coming from, Ralph, but the level of engagement from, different things, to me, it has to be, I agree with you. It has to be a responsibility you want to take on, but the responsibility has to be attractive. And I don't think that I just want to join the committee is a little bit different than I would be interested in learning more about this committee and having the opportunity to come. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a meeting, that they attend, but just talking with the group and finding out. Anything we can do to make the process of volunteering more conducive and comfortable, I'm for it.
And I think I think part of the cap, right, is that, let's say it's a board of 8 people. Now, the onus of the mission of those 8 people relies on those 8 people. If we have an opportunity for it to be 12 people, then perhaps there's more people. I could say people one more time just to make sure.
Yeah, please, more people.
That if there were others on there, that maybe the workload would shift so that there's less of that commitment too, because people's lives are so different. And I think right now, so I just think it's worth talking about just a touch while we're going.
Mr. Chairman, people's lives
Go
are
ahead.
indeed different,
Yeah.
and it is difficult. And we have become a much more litigious, confrontational society, even at the small town level, which is why, Dennis, what do you want to do that for? You out of your mind?
Right.
But that shouldn't be a disincentive if your motivation is to steer the town in the right direction, you have a mission. A lot of towns that I am familiar with have done basically the equivalent of job fairs, where various boards and commissions, especially what you would consider to be the key ones, host basically informational meetings where folks who might be interested come in and express an interest, ask questions, get answers from key members of those boards and commissions. And on the way out, they leave their names.
Sounds like Heritage Days. What a great way to see the boards and committees in our towns and who's doing what.
Yeah, I think that's also something that I would love to have be a part of, whatever kind of, wherever the sort of social activity ends up being, would be to have that be a part of Heritage Days.
Yeah.
Committees, and in fact, Greg Leimbach, is the
You're gonna
person
need an
who
extra
first.
week if
Yeah,
that's the
well,
case.
and just mentioned it to me, having, and not only that, but maybe having the committees and commissions do something
Sure.
for Heritage Days in terms of have an activity or be able to do something. Anything we can do to make it, to invest in people, giving back, I think is valid. I don't have anything new or additional to add to this unless there are any questions, but do we want to, we don't want to pass this through? Do we want to table this until we get all of our revisions and corrections figured out?
Yes, and just so you guys know, it's wording things like consecutive is missing in some places. One, the road committee thing is not quite complete the way I wrote it.
Mhm.
And we didn't put the FOAA training in on each committee.
Okay.
So it's
Gotcha.
very minor details, but we ought to do it right, like you said.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you very much.
We'll be in touch.
Yes, all right, then we will just ignore that and move on. Very well. We would like to get to item 22067, final reading of the revised Freedom of Access Policy. 5 minutes for this. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about this?
What page is that on? Can someone tell us?
I can. It is
77.
on, yep.
Say it again.
77.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, we're heavy on policy documents this meeting.
Yeah, it's a lot of
And
reading,
we're all still awake?
and we're all still awake.
So,
We don't wanna move.
We're almost there.
So I'll just say also, there were some suggested changes by the select board had. Those were incorporated unless Catherine found some more, which is entirely possible.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You're very
otherwise, I
thorough.
think that this,
She can't sleep.
this policy document meets our needs, reflects the recent changes in state law, and supplements the work that I'll be doing and I'm doing currently.
Anything other than state law changes, anything strange, weird, out of ordinary?
No, it's really, this is based on
Just conforming what you
almost
already have.
entirely something that we had before. So
Excellent. All right. I'd entertain a motion to accept this.
I'll make a motion to accept a revised freedom of access policy as presented.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor? Thank you very much.
Oh, that was quick.
That was wonderful.
Great job, everybody.
Thank you very much. Now we have our moment with item 22075, a new business. We have 55 minutes set for this. This will put us right out about 5 minutes past. So we'll see. We already did 5 minutes with the library, so that gives us a little time. But we begin with the review to review the emergency operations plan and consider a schedule for revision and holding a tabletop exercise. Now, we might need to be very explicit about what that all means because we have some new members here with us. But Eric, do you want to do this?
yeah, so we've had a emergency operations plan for several years, and it's probably decades now at this point. It is updated and is intentionally set to be updated annually. We didn't do that during COVID in part because we were living it. We were actively, running a slow burn on our emergency operations plan. And so at times come around again for us to look at this. It's an exceptional document for board members to look at, be familiar with, because it prepares us for an emergency. And as we've seen elsewhere in the country, tragedies can happen, severe weather events happen, and they're happening more frequently. And we've had ice storms, we've had microbursts, we've had some severe traffic accidents. Things like that can and do dictate, and we've had pandemics, that we work together to respond as a community. The role that the select board has in emergencies is a leadership role. And the wonderful thing about the EOP is it tries to match our routine work with the work that we would be doing during an emergency. And so my job is primarily as a facilitator of communications and to help with running expenditures. Lee's job would be to be on scene and responding, typically to run the on scene incident command and things like that. And the select board again, assumes the role of leading and being on site to, if required, to make sure that things are happening the way they should. So it's something that it's very good for us to look at, even better for us to practice. And so we haven't done a tabletop exercise probably for 3 years now.
Mhm.
But that's kind of one of the next levels of engagement before you get to something like what they do every 3 to 5 years in Kennebec County, which is bring a bunch of us together and run a day-long or a half-day exercise where we are actually living and actively managing a mock emergency.
Mhm.
The tabletop exercise is something in the middle, and it gives us a chance to, run through a scripted scenario, maybe take an hour, but gives us opportunity to practice the things and think about the things that we might be doing in our individual roles. And so I'll just say that this document being in the packet is here for review and discussion. I do hope that in the month of January that we can schedule a tabletop exercise at the newly renovated fire station. We have that meeting space and all of those resources there. So I'd be very excited to bring the select board in to see and experience and work in that environment where they may likely be working in an emergency. So that's my background on this. I'll leave it to the board to discuss any specifics and to talk about when they might like to schedule a tabletop exercise. And I'll also ask Lee if he has anything to add or any suggestions for timing on this work.
Yes. If you do want to speak, please go to the podiums. I know it's just the microphones. Yes. All right, you're good. Very well.
A comment or
Yep.
two and several things that I read through here. So having been on the board for a number of years, like read a long time,
Yeah.
what the key takeaway for me as a select board member is that there are more things that I am not supposed to do than there are that I am supposed to do. Just because we are the governing board of the town doesn't really give us much of a role in the EOP unless it's requested from us. The people in charge or the person in charge is Lee, according to our plan. And our basic responsibility is going to be making sure that everything happens in a way that it's recorded, verified, and we will be able to pay for it and that we authorize those payments. But we don't become that public voice of, the one the news people come to interview. That would be Eric.
Don't point at me.
And it's really important that there's one person who does that so that there's consistency. So that was my key piece of what I've learned from doing that. I know that we're all supposed to complete the NIMS courses, 100 and 700, and submit written evidence of that. I haven't gotten my certificate yet that you and I did. Did you get yours yet, Eric?
I haven't yet. I can follow up with Sean Goodwin on that.
And then a question that's on page 17. It says that we have supplies and that they're at the fire station, the town office. Oh, that's in another place. Anyway, it says that there are supplies at the fire station, and I just don't know when those were last checked. So that would be something I'm interested in.
Thank you.
It's been a few years, probably 3. So,
We
Yeah.
use all the supplies on a regular basis, so walking into the fire station, everything's right there. The boxes that are down here and the radio equipment, this is supposed to be the EOC, providing it's in a safe spot. And if it's not, and the fire station isn't, we've got a box at the high school. Do we ever get one up to Kent's Hill there?
I believe we did
Yeah, I think-
about 5 years ago.
There
It says
is
there's one at the middle school, the elementary school, and Kent's Hill School, but Eric's not clear on what might be there. I don't know if you are.
There's Post-it notes is a big thing. Markers, highlighters, whiteboards. Luckily, most of them are at the school, so there's an abundance of whiteboards hanging around.
Yeah. Amen.
The key thing was having radios in those, so we got a grant at one point through Kennebec EMA, and we bought new radios and programmed those. Those are probably due for some new batteries because it has been quite some time. They just sit there, and obviously they're not getting charged.
Do we know that someone at those 3 school locations knows that that's a box for this purpose and that it's available and known?
They're supposed to. They did at the time, but like everything, people change.
Right.
And hopefully our boxes that say Readfield Emergency Operations Box, hopefully they're still where we left them.
Right, they
I
haven't
think
kicked
that's
it
something
over.
we really need to
Yeah.
check on and do it at least annually, and we need
And that's the
Need a
whole
designated
idea,
person.
that's the whole idea of doing
this.
the tabletop, because it gets, you guys change,
Yeah.
every 3 years, so it gets everybody
Yep.
looking at that plan.
One more quick comment. And the reason we have those for Sean and Carol is that it could be possible that the town kind of gets cut into a section so that you couldn't, say, cross the railroad tracks. And so if we have a box at the elementary school, people on that side of town have stuff that they can work with while others are here without having to drive 15 miles around to go to Belgrade to get to the other side of town or whatever. So,
And the boxes are just there to get us started, because if it's a large event, you're gonna have Kennebec EMA coming in with their trailers. Because you were on the board when we did the hazmat down at the school, so, and that's kind of cool to get them out here at some point, so you get to see actually the resources that are available to us.
it was very interesting when we went there for an evening.
Hmm.
That's really cool.
So when we
Any-
have, sorry,
Go ahead, buddy.
so when we have this event, then to me, it makes sense that whoever holds a box attends as well.
There's a good idea.
Is that,
The-
I mean,
The boxes are basically for us, because like the RSU, where, when you start talking big disasters, then it becomes a whole different thing. So they've got their team, we've got our team, and you guys, and we just start walking. So that's just the box that's stored at those places. I just, for us to start with.
so hopefully there's a representative of RSU then that can, at least one person.
100%, there should be.
I mean,
'Cause
so
if
that,
if
you
it's
know-
affecting the town of Readfield, it's going to be affecting the RSU system.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
one-
just thinking in
one
terms
way.
of, is it Lee's job to go check these boxes? Is it the RSU's person's
I-
job?
Well, it's a
It should
town
be the
thing.
town of
That's what I'm
Readfield.
saying.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing now with
Yeah,
this, yeah.
And it probably should be the emergency management director that goes around.
And every
So we
school
need to
has a,
Clearly designate that in our
Yeah.
plan.
yeah, and every school has a designated emergency officer, that I know that the ones I worked in have, you know what I mean?
They have
Go ahead,
a
Eric.
whole crisis team.
I'll just say,
Yeah.
we'll add that update to the plan, and I will work with Lee to make sure that happens before we do our tabletop exercise.
Great.
I've
Ralph,
actually,
anything else?
I've got to go
Oh,
to the
sorry.
middle school tomorrow, so while I'm there, I'll go make sure
Good
our
idea.
box is down there.
Go ahead, Mr. Eno.
Mr. Rita, boy. This is why that exercise is going to be so important, because as you've heard, there are boxes out there, but we don't know who's responsible for them. We don't know who is checking to make sure that the components are functional once they're needed. So that needs to be at least part of a protocol on an annualized basis to make sure that the contacts are up to date and that any upgrades in those packages are made.
Well, they need to be replaced each year.
Right.
Those
Well-
lists need to be taken out and replaced with the current.
And I'm not sure that we're probably up to speed on that. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure
We probably still have Robin Lind as the
Yeah,
town clerk.
so-
It's out of date, there's no question.
So,
Yeah,
so that's, if nothing else comes of that, comes of this, that would be something that I think would take some primacy so that those emergency startup packages are up to date, current, and the people responsible for making sure they are in the loop, and there's at least an annual schedule for checking. As the revised document, as I've read it, looks fairly comprehensive. I don't have any problems with it's a guideline. You're never gonna get these things to a point where they are like 100% blanket. I have no problem tonight with, if we have to, if it's on the agenda to approve, that we approve it in its form and proceed from there.
It's not on the agenda for approval. I think that what we would be doing is
Finding a date.
having it in January or February, having the final approval, but working on it over the next couple of months.
So here's what I would suggest moving forward. If we can we come to our January meeting, all of us, with an idea of dates that we could do this? Is it generally is it a workshop meeting? Is it on a weekend? How does this
Weekends are
normally work?
probably better for all the folks that are going to be doing it.
I don't know. I've never done
Because
it.
most of them are volunteers. In my past
I don't
experience,
know.
that's the way it's worked.
Yeah.
Having been an emergency
Yeah.
management director in a town that had 2 new plants on either side of a 10-mile radius,
Yeah.
weekends are the best way to go.
So you
And the
guys
nice
will
thing
look
about
at
this
this.
is
Yeah.
it won't be FEMA observed, so we don't get written up for our mistakes.
Right.
The-
Lee?
What we do with that is it's pretty much just a tabletop. So it's pretty much just sitting there and it's us,
Okay.
the select board, town manager, just to see how things go.
So it's us right here.
Basically, and we might throw the deputy
Okay.
management
Perfect.
director in on it just
With some
because
simulation.
it's
And-
just, hey, this happened. It gets everybody to actually go down through that
Yeah.
plan and
Right.
And read through it.
get,
like
and
living
read
it.
through it. And 100% going to check the boxes. That was a great idea, putting all them boxes down there. We
Yeah.
talk about them every once in a while.
Yeah.
We don't do anything with them. And that
Right.
just,
Oh.
that's the whole point of that. And it changes contacts on the back of it. So if you got somebody that was in business when it was written, now they're out, then you got new people. It makes everything better.
I think in the plan, it states that it's like a 3-year cycle, and if it doesn't, we need to put it in there, but I think it does, that like you do a tabletop simulation, which is just basically the people in the room and probably maybe somebody from Kennebec County come out and sit with us, because they provide a lot of really interesting information and insight, and they're quick to point out what we're missing or doing wrong, as well as what we do right. And then in the next year, you do a bigger simulation, but probably still in a room, but with more people added in. And then in the third year, you would actually do something more or less physical. And they did that a couple years ago with the school, and they bussed all the kids up to
That-
Kents Hill School.
That was the schools.
Right. That's the school's
Thing.
management.
That was the school's EOP, just to
Right.
see how all that works. So
Right.
they do it also.
But it
right?
was in Readfield, and when we talked to emergency management and the training, they were very impressed. We're one of very few towns who actually keep doing this. And even though we don't do it as often as we should, like every year. So, he didn't feel there was a need to have a big practice like that.
I
again.
think if we can hit 100% mock thing every 5 years or thereabout, I think that, because there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And like when we did the hazmat one at the school,
Yeah.
that brings everybody from Kennebec County into it. So everybody gets it. Anybody that wanted to participate.
And then even if
So,
we aren't current select board people, we're still members of the community who have had this training, who can assist in a situation and help others, because we have a much bigger base of knowledge, so.
So we need to come to the meeting with dates.
Yep, in January, so we can figure out a time to sit around the table and go through should be a very easy, simple, non-invasive process.
An hour,
Ralph?
I think last time we did it, it was right around an hour. So you guys had a modified select board meeting.
Right, and then do that.
And
That's
then we
exactly
did the
what we'll do.
tabletop.
Yeah, go Ralph.
Should we have, Lee, should we have a hypothetical scenario for this tabletop to at
We-
least simulate some sort of an incident? that
We
could
come
have?
out and that's usually like, I'll call Sean Goodwin, hey, we're
Okay.
gonna do this, come out and give
I
it,
think that
you
would
know,
be
throw us
helpful.
a scenario.
Yes.
And that way,
Here we
I'm
go,
just
yeah.
as clueless as to what it's gonna be.
Yeah,
too.
and we should be actually.
So Eric, can we just do this as the second half or the first half of one of our meetings in January?
Yeah, I'll, let me look here what the schedule has. And actually, I'm not sure we've set fully.
We haven't set
quarter.
any
Yeah.
January meetings right now, so perhaps this,
We will need to since
we
this is
should.
our last one in December.
Yeah, we have
Perhaps
budget, we
we
have budget
should.
meetings
Very
scheduled, but we
astute,
haven't
Catherine.
actually set the select board schedule.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do that under other business?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Any other issues about this?
So I would like, Eric, do you think we can do a revised EOP document for our first January meeting?
Yes.
So I would like to have us set that up so that we can
Okay.
approve it at our first meeting, or at least read through it again and hopefully approve it.
I would suggest January 10th.
We're doing that now.
I guess not other business, but still, it just got brought up, so we can wait or we can
So
do it.
that would be the plan.
Yeah,
Well, let me confirm the, because we do have budget.
but they have that
dates
scheduled
that are-
already, right? Never
yeah, At
mind.
least one of
Never
those
mind.
dates. So
Yep.
I'll
Gotcha.
confirm that and then we can talk about it.
Gotcha, thank you. Good. Anything else about that? Okay.
Lee,
Um,
anything else you need from us on this?
No. Thank you, and God bless you.
Are you staying for the ambulance conversation?
I am.
Oh, excellent.
All right. 22, speaking of segue, item 22076, here an update on the Winthrop ambulance service from EMS Director Davinsky. 15 minutes set aside for this. Is Mr. Davinsky with us? I don't see him on the Zoom.
There's a fair chance he's out on the call because they're short-staffed and he's been having to man the ambulance.
Good.
So-
Is there any, should we have the discussion nevertheless and read the letter, or should we read the letter out loud? Should we just refer to it? Tell me what you think.
Probably worth talking about. It's a pressing issue in the
Good.
community right now.
So then I would agree, and I'm glad you said that. So we're just going to talk a little bit about this. Catherine, did you want to start?
Sure. We have something in the packet. I bet Carol knows about what page it's on. 'Cause I'm not-
125.
On page 125, you said?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. There was a letter from the Winthrop Ambulance Service, who is our provider for EMS services for medical transport in Readfield. I would take note that there have been at least 2 articles in the last week in the Central Maine newspapers talking about this issue on a statewide level. I know that some people in town have been frustrated because they've had calls and the response time was much longer than what they would normally expect, and might have been way longer than what they had hoped for considering the condition they were in. But the problem is not with Winthrop Ambulance Service alone, it's with everyone. There's a severe staffing shortage. People are overworked. They can't empty out ambulances when they get them to facilities because facilities don't have any space to take them. So they're sitting in the ambulance for an hour and longer before they can get them out. And then that means there's no ambulance here in town to respond to the next call. Everybody's doing the best they can. It's a statewide issue. And from what I've been reading recently, this isn't a new issue. This is something that's been happening over the last 10 years. They've been losing something like, I don't know what the number was. Was it 50 or 100 a year?
It was high.
Yeah. So it's decreased significantly, like 20% of the worker force has gone away in the last 10 years, and people are not signing up to be trained to do these jobs. So Winthrop Ambulance has said that, they're trying everything they can to respond. They're having administrative personnel come out to respond. They're calling in people from other towns when they can't get to somebody. And it's just kind of a crisis situation right now. And we're all going to need to kind of work together to brainstorm this and encourage younger people to come and work and do this. But he's asking for a lot of patience and understanding and support from the town. He realizes that it's an expensive service that's being provided, and they would like to provide it ASAP, but that isn't necessarily the way it can happen right now.
Yes, I appreciate Mr. Davinsky giving us the letter, which is included, basically reinforcing most of that as well. So
Isn't
go ahead.
there quite a bit of training involved? I would assume to like, even if you have some interested parties, it's quite a,
Hundreds of hours.
that's what I thought. I
Yes.
think it said a 35% reduction in
Mhm.
DM, and they
Yeah.
service 7 communities. That's quite a breadth from Monmouth to
It really is, yeah.
Fayette. So
There are programs that begin in high schools, in tech centers, where kids can be interested. And I know that some departments might do things with that, and you can go to the tech colleges and do a program there. Lee?
Chief?
There are programs, but to kind of go back on your, you were saying Winthrop's using mutual aid from like Augusta and other places, but those other places are also using Winthrop for mutual aid. So Winthrop goes to Augusta a fair amount. They went to Wales yesterday. Turner, I mean, so they're, with what they've got for people, they're facing, they have people come, but they're going for other people. And I think basic EMT is not as intensive as like paramedic stuff, but from what I gather, when you go up the line, it's actually a college course to become a paramedic. There's a lot of time commitment. There's a lot of money commitment for people. And so, yeah, there's definitely an issue.
I know at the state level, they're looking at that, and
Yeah.
hopefully the state may decide to help fund education on that, because we're an older state who are going to need more of these services and have even fewer people to provide them. So it's not something each town can solve on its own.
It's a very expensive proposition for every town. So to get it,
it's kind of like people not going into the trades. This is not exactly that, but still it's physical work.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a lot of stuff. Anything else about this?
I'd just like to say my thanks to the Winthrop Ambulance Service over all the years that we've done business with them. They've always been really responsive. They were willing to come and set up here at the fire station to be closer to the outreach, the outlying towns, to make the response time shorter to Fayette and Mount Vernon and other places. But I think that's now been withdrawn recently.
since the pandemic started, and then, because he was keeping his guys in Winthrop, because he didn't want to bring that up here with an ambulance staffed, and then with staffing problems, I think it pretty much makes it impossible for him to send an ambulance up here. Because I know I've seen Winthrop PD driving ambulances, because they'll have a paramedic, but obviously, so he's doing the best he can do with what he's got for staff.
And I think that gets lost sometimes, is that, we hear about, oh, well, we don't have anyone in the training and things. But the thing that I think is the sort of the pinnacle of professionalism among the folks that are working is the fact that they understand how valuable the service is, and they are doing what they can for themselves and for others. And that's important. So.
And it may be a situation where people have to decide if they have something that isn't life-threatening, that it's something they can handle taking themselves to get service for it in urgent care or in a hospital. I'm not talking life-threatening things where you need somebody with you, but that may be something that we have to talk about as a community. If you think you fractured an arm, you might be able to bandage that up and have someone take you as opposed to waiting for an ambulance. So things to talk about with medical providers and figure out.
Thank you. Chief, thank you. Anything else on item 22076? Thank you. We would like to move to 22077. Consider the use of ARPA funds to provide $2 an hour premium pay for volunteer firefighters retroactive to June 1st, 2021 and forward through June 30th, 2022. We've put 5 minutes aside for this. Eric, I assume you can explain.
Yeah, so when we had first talked about ARPA for staff, we hadn't actually been in the mode of completing payroll for our fire department. We pay them twice a year. We typically try to get their payroll completed prior to Christmas, so they can then have that extra money available. And we do the same thing in May. So basically, it's, right before the end of the year, or excuse me, June, right before the end of the year. And so this is, in my mind, is one of the most completely appropriate and clear uses for this money. The first effort is to try to reward first responders for their efforts and sacrifices during the pandemic. We've talked a lot in the last couple of months about some of the strains on our department, including the need for vaccinations. And the folks that have continued to be here and the folks that have served and will continue to serve, I think ought to be in line for the same kind of benefit that we're seeing provided to other municipal employees, even though they're in a class that's a bit different, being paid volunteers. But I guess all I can say is that this to me seems entirely appropriate. The net impact for that 6 month period would be $1,272 more than the $7,727.40 we would have been paying otherwise. So basically taking the total runtime and multiplying it by that extra $2 an hour. And I think this is a good thing to do. I'd like to see it continue going forward, just as we are looking at with the budget for the municipal employees. We talked about it, hard to get people to volunteer. It's hard to get people to do paid work. And so moving from paying our volunteer responders minimum wage to moving to paying them $2 more than that, I think is a smart, responsible thing to do. And again, with the ARPA funds, I think it's an entirely appropriate use. So I'm happy to take any questions on that, but that's where I got.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just have I guess it is a question. Right now, we're at $12.15 an hour, so that's going to put us at $14.15 an hour, which I'm hoping that means that come January, we're talking at least $12.75 an hour plus $2, making it $14.75, right?
Because minimum wage is
Minimum
going up
wage goes up January 1,
To what?
$12.75,
from,
$12.15.
Yeah.
I would rather we just round that $14.75 to $15 at that point.
Say that again. January, it goes from,
$12.15 to $12.75,
so you're proposing what?
15 if we're doing a $2 per hour instead of $2.25 to even it at 15, which is looking more towards the national standard for minimum wage that people are looking at.
Go ahead, Karen.
So did I read somewhere that this was from June to June?
Yes.
Yep, it's right there on the agenda.
Part of it being retroactive. I can't say what it's going to be from for the month of December through the month of May, basically. But it would be, I expect, similar to what we've seen here. So in some respects, I'm asking you to give a number that's certain and then one that's not certain for the second half of the year. But it would be a similar number and a similar difference. As Sean said, if we go that route, it would be more if we bump it up to the 14.75 or 15. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions. So the reason I like this one, the reason I didn't like the town employees, not that I didn't think they were deserving of it, but that the dollar increase outlived the grant. And it was not in our budget, but it was like going forward like forever. And it was a one-time payment. So that was my thing. So if this has a finite amount of time and then it's something we can discuss at budget time, I think that's an appropriate use of ARPA, is that it's a one-time, money's being spent, but an increased salary going forward didn't seem appropriate for like a one-time expenditure or one-time bunch of money. Having to do with the folks that may not be with us in January, they're still going to get this retroactive?
They would still get it retroactive because we appreciate what they did while they were here.
Right,
No
okay.
question.
Good. I mean, these are definite first responders. They're in harm's way. Absolutely.
So I just, yeah, that's a good point about the time frame of this. And so this actually is very similar to what was done for the employees. The employees also are going to be discussed during the budget process. So that's not a given. I think it's important to make that point. I would like to see this continue for the volunteer firefighters after June. So that's my recommendation. I can't make any of that stuff happen. But I think that to be clear, this is retroactive and then going forward through June. So you're absolutely right about that.
Ralph?
Just for the record, the funding is in place and the select board has the authority to make the increase.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody?
I'll make a
Oh, go
motion.
ahead.
It's going to be in 3 parts.
Okay.
So, here you go,
Pay attention,
Kristen.
Kristen, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we pay the Readfield Fire Department responders a $2 per hour premium pay retroactively from June 1st. Is that the date?
Yep.
This isn't our fiscal year, right? That's why I'm questioning.
Yeah, we might want to, because it goes from, our pay period goes from June to November and then December to May.
Okay, retroactive from June 1st through November 30th for a $2 premium pay coming from ARPA funds. Secondly, to continue that bonus pay from the ARPA funds of $2.25 an hour for the time period December 1st through May 31st. And thirdly, to request the budget committee to try to appropriate continuing funding for this in the future.
Good. So I just want to review that for everyone keeping score at home. The motion on the floor is for us to approve retroactive $2 premium pay from June to December. Because of the raise in minimum wage, a $2.25 from January to the end of May.
December
To the end of May, in order to be a part of, to even things out. Are there any, you also asked for the continuation, that was the second part, and then the third part is for the budget committee to consider putting this into as part of the budget.
That is.
I just want to make sure everyone knew what we were doing. Hang on one second. It has been moved for those parts to be added and included in this motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Now we can have discussion. Carol?
So I'm with you, except the 225
Sure. What we were
after
just,
January.
what we were just speaking about was the fact that
Wage.
right, the minimum wage will go to $12.75. With the $2 that we are approved, if we would have approved, right, to keep it even, it would only take it to $14.75. So if we add that extra quarter, it's 15 even on December through May.
So we're doing the same, or we're doing the same for the town employees, right?
No, this is just, this would
Totally
just be
new?
for the fire department volunteers.
This
Yes.
is one set pay. right?
Okay.
Right, it's all one set pay, right? There's no
And they
grades.
only get paid for time they respond,
Mhm.
Right.
which is unknown until there's a call.
Right.
Yeah, and I think even after the funds are gone, and we'd have to check with Teresa, but I keep enough because it's an unknown, so I don't think it would be, and I don't think any year I've ever used all the payroll money that's been in there, so I don't think it would be an impact on,
Yeah, great for the budgeting purpose.
on,
Great.
on the taxpayers, unless all of a sudden we started running 200 runs a year.
Hmm. Thank you for that. That's good. That's a good added addition. It's been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to Chief and all of your folks. Our next item, we have taken 2278. Next up, 21079. Consider approval and acceptance of a $1,000 recreation grant through a Charles Schwab donor advised fund in recognition of Cash McClure, Maine Gatorade Boys Basketball Player of the Year. Great. You want to talk about this?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just want to be clear, this was not an application that was submitted as a
Right.
grant. This was a very interesting way of giving a individual money to then donate to somebody. And Cash, who was a senior last year, the basketball team was given the Gatorade's main basketball player of the year and wanted to donate that $1,000 to the rec fund for continual basketball programming. So
Awesome.
it was not a formal,
Nice, that's right.
Really a donation.
yes, but it's kind of worded. It's not an
No.
interesting one. So
It's, well, it threw me with the, you know.
Grant.
Want to make a
fancy-
motion?
I make a motion to approve and accept $1,000 recreation grant through the Charles Schwab Donor Advised Fund in recognition of Cash McClure.
Okay,
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much and congratulations, Cash.
Dennis, I think we need to extend the meeting for maybe 10 minutes, but not necessarily use it.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to extend the meeting for 10 minutes, but not necessarily use it.
So moved.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
In other words, if we're brief, we can still make it in
No,
time.
yes, yes, Catherine, we were following you. Our last item on the agenda is to hear an update from the Recreation Board and on the proposed ball field project at the fairgrounds and consider the use of contingency funds for additional planning and design work. We have 10 minutes set aside for this. I believe the Hannah on our Zoom screen is Rec President Hannah Flannery.
And we have Matt here in person.
And Matt is here.
Present now to present, sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Matt, are you here to talk to us a little bit about this? And if so, please go to the podium, introduce yourself like none of us know you, and then you may speak.
I'm Matt LaJoy. I'm a two-year member of the Recreation Committee, and I'm here to speak about the ball fields and the meeting that we had last week with the other committees, the Conservation and Trails Committee.
Excellent.
So last week, the three committees met, and we just kind of all wanted to come together and have a plan for what that ball field is going to look like. The Rec Committee has proposed the addition of a softball field as well as a basketball court up around where the parking lot is currently. There was concern over the environmental impact of that, and that was what was discussed with the Conservation Committee, as well as the trails were concerned with any impacts that might have on their system, and wanted to make sure that if it is impacted, that they are moved and not disrupted. There was, I'd say the bulk of the conversation was around why we're not able to just use the school ball fields, the elementary schools. And I think with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, we're not able to always use those fields. The school has the ultimate authority over that, as well as the MBA, which also shut us down for their purposes. Moving forward, we will still intend to use those fields. I think our programs are large enough where we need that additional field. The softball team currently doesn't have a field outside of that one at the Readfield Elementary School. So there is the need there. And I think at the end of that meeting, we all agreed that whatever is proposed, we all want it to be something that we can be proud of moving forward. It's going to take significant effort to make it happen, and it's going to take us all working together.
Excellent.
So Eric, can you talk about the need for the additional planning and the design work and what that sort of funding need is for, just for those of us that weren't at the meeting?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So when we had originally budgeted for this project, we set aside a small amount, $5,000 for design work. And that got us to where we are now, which is we have a couple of plans that were put together by our engineering firm, Mainland Development. And we have had a few meetings they've been able to attend to talk with members of the rec board, but also some of the other committees. The Conservation Commission would like to see a more, I guess, landscape-oriented approach. The engineering firm that we have, they're not experts in park and recreation design, and conservation would like to see a landscape architect involved with the planning process and ensure that we have a more professionally guided planning process. Both of those things are not, were not originally anticipated. We anticipated we would have a design and then we'd move through a planning board process that would bring in some of these things with the town staff and maybe some board and committee members helping with the public outreach and input process. So this is definitely more of a robust process. I don't want to qualify it in any way really other than to say that it would result, in my view, in more and better discussion and a more direct engagement between the folks doing our design work for us and the public input that we get from stakeholder groups, including the neighbors, including another meeting with the various boards and committees. And I think that would be valuable. But again, we don't have any money in the rec budget for that or in conservation or in trails. So my recommendation is that the select board consider up to $6,000 for additional design and planning work to help move this project along. I think that this is a way for us to accommodate a request from a committee and also get better results, frankly. What we have is good, but we could do better. So that's my summary of the need and the direction and what I anticipate to be the cost. I did include a quote from Mainland Development for $4,000 with the inclusion of landscape architect services as a sub-consultant. I do expect that would increase to about $6,000, and I think that's a fair place to set that at this point.
Yes, go ahead, Carol.
Who's requesting the landscape architect?
It was requested by the Conservation Commission.
$6,000 for a landscape architect?
Well, not just for the landscape architect, for additional design and planning work. So our engineers would be involved as well. And so that would be in the select board packet. I did include a summary of the work that would be done and what the expectations were. So that would include pre-planning time for committee work with the Readfield committees, refresh and revise the conceptual plan to basically make one or two, maybe even three new plans to look at the possible arrangement at the facility, to have a design charrette meeting, which is a planning meeting with stakeholders from the various committees to facilitate the plans revision based on that public feedback, and then to help with permit level plan submittal. So to really give a full detailed plan that we can then use for any of our purposes going forward. So there's no question in anybody's mind about what's being proposed, where and how.
Sean and then Ralph.
So I know that through many of these conversations, the fairgrounds management plan that has been mentioned from the Conservation Commission. And I just want to highlight that in that, under the management responsibilities and costs, it is stated that any sort of costs related to these portions would come from the Conservation Commission budget. And I know that recently we approved to support them because they didn't have anything in their budget due to the forestry needs. I think there might need to be a bit of a conversation about that budget piece if more of these situations are going to come up, that now we're looking at $6,000 for managing those pieces. That's going to come out of a different budget, because that's really not what this plan states that we're trying to follow.
That's a very good point. And one of the things that I would mention is that, as you said, there is no funding available in the conservation budget for this. The Select Board Contingency Fund, where I'm recommending this come from, is a $25,000 fund for unforeseen circumstances. I think this fits that bill. And also, we've used it in the past to enable facilitation. And I see this in part, not just as improving the design process, but facilitating collaboration between the boards and committees that we work with. In the past, we had an issue at Cove Road subdivision where there were neighbors disagreeing. The town had been involved because of the subdivision work. So we used the funds in that account to hire a facilitator. This doesn't rise to that level, and I hope we never get to that level with this project. I thought we might be headed that direction for a while, but at the meeting we had last week was very positive. But I think this is a way for us to meet folks, the needs that our committee members have. So I think that's an appropriate use of that fund. Again, the board would have to approve it, but that's where we are.
Ralph?
Thank you for answering my question about where that money was going to come from.
You're welcome.
My next question is, and you know how I love operating fund contingencies encumbered into the next fiscal year without specific reasons as to why. But do you foresee any other needs for a drawdown of that 25,000 where using 6 out of that fund might compromise our availability to do other things?
I don't necessarily. The one thing that we do expect to come up is we are expecting a lawsuit from Robert Bitar on this and the Safe Space Meeting House. We haven't been able to make any real headway on preventing that, as far as I can tell. But that is going to be a slow burn to start, and I expect that most of our expenses for that lawsuit will likely happen in the next fiscal year.
And would some of that legal experience actually fall under the heading of our legal counsel versus dipping into contingency monies?
Absolutely, but with the type of lawsuit that I'm expecting, we could be in the $50,000, $60,000 pretty handily. If it goes the direction that I hope it doesn't. But the last time we had a lawsuit, it cost us probably $10,000 or $15,000 just for a basic land use one, and this is being pushed as a federal discrimination case. So I'm trying to avoid that, but I want the board to be aware that those costs could be out there. We do have a contingency for legal fees that has some funds in it. We do have a $15,000 legal budget, but if we get into that, that could really cause problems. But I think that what we have, $6,000 out of that account probably won't harm our ability to respond to that if it happens.
Go ahead, Catherine. Yep.
And that's something that needs to be brought up to the budget committee to plan for next year.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't like having to set money aside for those reasons, but it would be responsible to do so because we have an idea that something is coming up. So it's roughly an additional $2,000 that you're asking for on this landscape architect piece. So that together between the two businesses, they would be coming in at a total of $6,000.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, rather than switch gears and hire someone else to come in or have two competing proposals, I talked to both parties and recommended that the landscape architect come in as a sub-consultant. So they'll be managed through the engineering firm. That way there's no carts being overturned and there's not any not that there would be animosity to the professionals, but
Right.
I wouldn't want to take a project away from somebody and give it to somebody else.
Absolutely. Ralph, please.
So in the spirit of enhanced planning and accommodation to move forward the symbiotic relationship between the involved boards and commissions.
Yes.
I would move that we appropriate $6,000 from the select board contingency fund to move the recreation plan for the ball field and basketball court forward.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve. Approve that. It's been moved and seconded to use those contingency funds up to $6,000 for additional planning and design work,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed. Is there any discussion? Catherine?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to that. I'd like to set a date for that to be done by the 1st of February and to have a plan submitted to the planning board by April 1st.
Can we do that, Eric? Is that a reasonable?
That's an amendment, so you want to vote on the amendment first?
Right, that's what I'm saying. But in terms of the actual practicality of that request, Catherine is doing.
It's an aggressive time frame, but it certainly would meet the needs of our budget process.
Sounds good. So there is an amendment on the floor to amend the original motion to accept the $6,000 not to exceed. We are voting currently on that amendment.
Well, we don't have a second yet.
We don't have a second yet.
More discussion.
Hang on.
I would second Catherine's
Yes.
motion.
The
for the amendment.
second the motion for the amendment. Is there discussion on the amendment, please?
Okay, so,
We're talking about whether or not the time frame
the triangle.
is valid. Let's include, good, that's what we were hoping. Let's, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Excellent. So now the motion before us is to, as Ralph originally said, approve up to $6,000 in contingency funds for planning and design work to be done by to be submitted by February 1st, completed by April 1st,
Planning board.
to go to the planning board. Now, is there any discussion on that motion? Carol? Thank
So
you.
I lost you between Eric and Kathy. Where did you say about it's 2,000 and not 6,000?
The proposal listed in the packet is, from Eric from Mainland, is $4,000.
134.
That was already anticipated.
No,
Well, that was
Eric was
additional.
asking for $4,000 originally based on their estimate. But in consideration of the Conservation Commission bringing in another landscape architect, adding $2,000 more to that, which makes a total of $6,000.
So the
So-
first 4,000 is a landscape architect?
No.
It's a regular architect.
Yep, it's a company on page 134, Mainland, which is the engineering, Rick Dunton.
So full disclosure, so we've spent about $5,000 to date on getting to where we are with the current plan. That would have been enough had we just decided to go the route that was originally planned and have the town hold some public hearings and then move to the planning board process with the proposals that we were presented with. Upon discussion, I think it makes sense, in my view, to expand that and rework and revisit some of the priorities that were expressed at that joint meeting. And so that work, if it was just our engineer, would be about $4,000 to move into that process. And what was proposed and strongly suggested by conservation was that we add on to that another perspective, and that being the perspective of a landscape architect who can look very closely at the conservation
Impact.
priorities and impacts. And so that's where that comes in. So really, and this definitely is an up to amount. I'm hoping to facilitate as much as I can the public meetings and not have to have them do a lot of legwork on that. But so that's where it's coming from, is the original piece, baseline 5,000, adding 4 for the engineering piece, and then 2 basically for the real specialized landscape architect piece. So we're looking in the end at about $11,000 on planning, which seems like a lot until you think about a project that could be upwards of $300,000 to $500,000. And then seems like it's money well spent.
And this was kind of a breaking point, like an impasse, it sounds like.
I
too.
think that there is a term like you're paying some freight. You're
Make a
greasing the
motion to
wheels.
extend our meeting by 5 minutes.
It's been moved and seconded. All
We
in
have a motion on
favor?
the table, but
Good.
Wow.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, wait, no, wait. But yes,
I'm okay.
Carol, I think that's where we fall on this. There is a motion. We're still in discussion, and I want to just, I think now is the time to say this. It has nothing to do with the money per se, but a part of this because we got there before I had a chance to say it. I am supporting projects that move Readfield forward, and I think this is one. I support projects for Readfield that I think serve our population. I would not support any project that looks to develop a field at Readfield Elementary School. For me, that is a non-starter. It is backwards looking and foolish. And so from my part, I want to state that clearly so everyone understands that to me is not really the most practical way of moving forward. So I saw in the discussion, why wasn't that explored? I don't think there's a reason to explore it because quite honestly, it's not anything I think that needs to be explored. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate just having the opportunity to clarify that. We have a motion on the floor. It has been moved. It has been seconded to accept and appropriate these funds up to $6,000, February 1st, submittal date, April 1st, date for product. All in favor?
Planning board. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now Sean's motion that I seconded to extend the meeting so we can plan.
Yes, all in favor. We did that again. Great. Excellent. Go ahead. And you want to do this now?
Yeah, we need some dates.
yes, okay, so I put dates together.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So we have January 10th and January 31st are the two dates in January. Those are set per the budget schedule. So we do have
Say
time.
again, say
And
again.
then the
January
10th.
10th and January 31st.
Okay.
I know the 17th is Martin Luther Day,
Yes, that is correct.
so that may not be great.
So it would have to be the 18th because that would be a Tuesday.
Yeah, agreed.
Oh, I mean, you could do it in conjunction with one of those dates. I think that's what Lee was suggesting.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so how much do we have planned on the 10th or the 31st in terms of, can we use an hour?
I think easily, especially on the 31st, because that's kind of the bonus meeting for the month.
And would anyone be
Wait, what?
objecting if we met, say, if we needed to handle regular business and do the EOP tabletop on one night, we could meet 6:30 to 9? So as to not have to have another meeting?
So we're talking about the 10th, the 24th, and the 31st?
No, just the 10th and the
just the
31st.
Just the 31st would be the tabletop.
Okay.
I know it's a huge day for you, right? Are you good?
We're good.
We're good.
31st. So let's build the tabletop exercise into our meeting as an additional add-on January 31st.
And will that be, we're going to end our select board meeting or begin,
Uh-huh.
that will be a workshop time.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the fire station, I hope.
Yes, that's right. Take a field trip.
And then when are our meetings in February?
So I have February, March, and April ready for you.
Okay, great. Give those to me.
February 15th is a scheduled meeting.
Yeah.
If we did a 2-week split, that would put it at the 28th. Again, that's not a required meeting. We don't have that scheduled yet, but typically this time of year, with things moving the way they do, we put it on the agenda, and then if we need to roll back, we can roll it back.
So 15th, 28th.
And then March?
March would be March 14th, and that is a scheduled date, and then the 28th also.
28th.
And isn't there a budget committee, something on a Thursday? in there?
I think that's the 3rd, but yeah, these are just the select board
Yes,
meetings.
it is.
Yeah, just give us the, yeah.
Right, but there's a.
Is there a joint meeting?
There's a joint budget committee meeting that I thought was on a Thursday.
But it's not, we're not there
It
yet,
is,
are we?
I didn't write that down.
I have the
Um,
select board and budget committee on the 3rd,
Of March.
what?
March.
March
Okay, so
3rd,
we're
okay.
already on the
Public hearing
3rd.
on the 24th. Do we need to go to the public hearing?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, yep.
And the public hearing's on the 24th,
24th.
So you might want to drop that second meeting in March.
right? Because that's
That gets
Yeah.
heavy.
3/28.
Yeah,
We'll drop that one off.
yeah, good job.
Okay, so then April, if you want to keep going, we have April 11th is on the agenda. And then the 25th would be 2 weeks after that. And I would suggest that we schedule that meeting,
Can you repeat April?
April 25th and April 11th.
11th.
April, I'm sorry, what, April?
April 11,
Okay.
4/11 and 4/25.
Okay, thank you.
And this also lets the public know when we're going to be meeting so they can plan ahead. So if
This will
these
be
dates could be
excellent,
put
yeah.
on.
And it'll be right on the calendar, yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
April 25th is where we've gotten up to, yeah?
Yeah, and I didn't go any further than that because
That's
that's
fine.
pretty much when the budget process ends and it gives us more than a quarter worth of meetings. So we're,
Okay.
And that
Pretty good.
includes the CIP meeting.
again, this is just select board meetings. I didn't include the joint meetings in the summary. Yeah, so that will be on the calendar as
So the
well.
calendar will be updated this weekend.
Calendar should already be updated for all the budget meetings,
So with these little
but the
pieces,
select board meetings will be added as well. Yep.
Great.
I know where to find that.
Ding. We are almost at our extended
I'll make a
time.
motion to adjourn.
Motion
I
to
will
adjourn.
second.
Seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.